I see the middle class disappearing. Not slowly, not gradually, right now. And if you're not preparing for what's coming, you're already falling behind. This isn't speculation. This is what I see every single day at Amazon, across millions of transactions, hiring patterns, and consumer behaviors. The economy you grew up understanding no longer exists. The rules have changed, and most people have no idea what's happening to them. Let me be clear. When I talk about the middle class being wiped out, I'm not talking about some distant future scenario. I'm talking about today, right now. The traditional path of getting a degree, landing a stable job, working your way up the ladder, and retiring with a pension is gone. That model died years ago, but millions of people are still following it like a map to a destination that no longer exists. Here's what I see from my vantage point. Automation isn't coming. It's here. At Amazon, we've replaced entire warehouse management teams with algorithms. What used to require 50 middle managers now runs on software and a handful of engineers. Customer service roles that employed thousands are now handled by machine learning systems. Accounting departments that once had dozens of people now operate with 3. This isn't unique to Amazon. This is happening everywhere across every industry, and it's accelerating. The roles disappearing fastest are exactly the jobs that built the middle class. Administrative positions, data entry, basic financial analysis, middle management, quality control. These were the stable, decent paying jobs that allowed people to buy homes, raise families, and build comfortable lives. They're vanishing at a pace that should terrify anyone who depends on a traditional paycheck. But here's what makes this different from previous economic shifts. In the past, when technology eliminated jobs, it created new ones. The Industrial Revolution destroyed farming jobs but created factory jobs. Computers eliminated typing pools but created IT departments. People could retrain and adapt. The transition was difficult but possible. This time is different. The jobs being created by the AI and automation revolution require completely different skill sets. They demand creativity, strategic thinking, complex problem solving, and technical expertise that can't be taught in a 6-month training program. The gap between what's being eliminated and what's being created is massive, and most people are on the wrong side of that gap. Now add inflation to this picture. Inflation is the silent killer of the middle class. It's a tax that hits hardest on people with fixed salaries. When you earn the same paycheck every month, but your rent increases, your groceries cost more, your health care premiums rise, and your child care expenses climb, you're not standing still. You're falling backward. The wealthy protect themselves from inflation. They own assets, real estate, stocks, businesses. These appreciate with inflation. If inflation runs at 5% annually, asset values tend to rise at similar or higher rates. But if you're earning a salary and you get a 2% raise, you're losing 3% of your purchasing power every single year. Compound that over a decade, and you understand why families that felt solidly middle class 10 years ago now struggle to make ends meet. This is what I call the erosion. It's not dramatic, it doesn't happen overnight, but year after year, the buying power of earned income shrinks while the value of owned assets grows. The result is a widening gap between those who own and those who work. And if you're only earning a paycheck, you're on the losing side of that equation. I watch people optimize their lives for the wrong things. They chase job titles, they pursue corner offices, they compete for slightly higher salaries at companies that could eliminate their entire department with a single software implementation. They're climbing a ladder that's leaning against the wrong building. I call this the high status treadmill. You work harder to afford a nicer car, a bigger house in a better neighborhood, private schools for your kids. Each step up requires more income, so you work more hours, take on more stress, and become more dependent on that single paycheck. You think you're building security, but you're actually building fragility. Because here's the truth. In today's economy, relying on a single income source is like flying a plane with only one engine. It feels fine when everything is working, but the moment that engine fails, you're in free fall. And in an era of mass layoffs, industry disruption, and rapid technological change, that engine is far more likely to fail than most people realize. I've seen this play out thousands of times. Smart, hardworking people who did everything right, they got good educations, they built impressive resumes, they earned solid salaries, then their company restructured, or their industry got disrupted, or their role got automated, and suddenly after 20 years of career building, they're competing with recent graduates for positions that pay half what they used to earn. The devastating part is how quickly financial security evaporates. Most families live paycheck to paycheck, even at high income levels. They've optimized their spending to match their income, mortgage, car payments, insurance, utilities, subscriptions. When the paycheck stops, the bills don't. Savings drain in months. Retirement accounts get raided. Debt accumulates. The fall from comfortable to desperate happens faster than anyone expects. This is the reality facing the middle class. Automation eliminating stable jobs. Inflation eroding buying power. Economic volatility making single income sources dangerous. And most people are navigating this environment with an outdated playbook that tells them to find a good job and work hard. That playbook will destroy you. So what's the solution? How do you survive and thrive in this new economy? The answer is simple, but requires a fundamental mindset shift. You must stop thinking like an employee and start thinking like an owner. Owners don't rely on paychecks. They own assets that generate returns. They control businesses that create value. They build systems that work whether they're actively involved or not. This is the only reliable path to financial security in the modern economy. Let me be specific about what this means. First, you need to own equity, not just in your employer through a stock compensation plan, although that's better than nothing. You need to own diversified investments that appreciate over time, index funds, real estate investment trusts, dividend-paying stocks. These assets grow with the economy and protect you from inflation. But ownership goes beyond financial investments. You need to own skills that can't be automated: creativity, strategic thinking, relationship building, complex problem solving. These are human capabilities that machines can't replicate. If your job consists of following procedures and processing information, you're vulnerable. If your job requires judgment, innovation, and interpersonal influence, you're valuable. You also need to own your attention and your time. This might sound abstract, but it's crucial. Most people rent out their attention and time to employers in exchange for a fixed salary. That's a terrible trade in today's economy. Your attention and time are your most valuable resources. You should be investing them in building assets you own, not just earning a paycheck. This means developing side businesses, creating intellectual property, building platforms and audiences. These take time and effort up front, but they create compounding returns. A consulting practice you build on nights and weekends might start small, but it gives you optionality. If your day job disappears, you have something to fall back on. And unlike a job, a business you own can scale and grow in value. Here's what I learned building Amazon. We didn't focus on this quarter's earnings or next year's targets. We focused on building durable, competitive advantages that would compound over decades. Customer obsession, operational excellence, long-term thinking. This approach seemed crazy to people optimizing for short-term results. But compounding is the most powerful force in business and economics. The same principle applies to personal financial security. You need to shift from short-term income optimization to long-term asset building. That means living below your means so you can invest the difference. It means avoiding consumer debt that drains your resources. It means making career decisions based on learning and equity upside, not just salary increases. Let me address the debt trap specifically, because this is critical. Debt is a tool, and like any tool, it can build or destroy depending on how you use it. Productive debt that finances assets which appreciate or generate income can accelerate your progress. A mortgage on a property that increases in value. A business loan that expands your revenue. These uses of debt can make sense. But consumer debt is poison. Credit card balances from lifestyle spending, auto loans on depreciating vehicles, personal loans to fund vacations or weddings. This debt doesn't build anything. It just extracts interest payments that prevent you from building real wealth. Every dollar you pay in credit card interest is a dollar that could have been invested in assets that grow. The middle class is drowning in bad debt. They finance lifestyles they can't afford with money they don't have. They mistake access to credit for wealth. But debt isn't wealth. It's the opposite. It's a claim on your future income. And in an unstable economy where that future income isn't guaranteed, debt is a noose around your neck. Now, let me talk about time horizon, because this is where most people get it wrong. They think in terms of months and quarters. What will my bonus be this year? Can I afford this purchase next month? Should I switch jobs for a 10% raise? These short-term questions lead to short-term decisions that optimize for immediate gratification at the expense of long-term security. You need to think in decades. Where do you want to be in 10 years? What assets do you need to own? What skills do you need to develop? What systems do you need to build? When you extend your time horizon, different decisions make sense. Spending 5 years building expertise in an emerging field becomes worthwhile. Investing aggressively in your 20s and 30s becomes obvious. Starting a business that loses money for 3 years while building a customer base becomes logical. This long-term thinking is uncomfortable. It requires delayed gratification. It means making sacrifices today for benefits that won't materialize for years. But it's the only path to real security in an economy that's destroying traditional middle-class stability. I see the future clearly. The divide between owners and workers will continue to widen. Automation will keep eliminating routine jobs. Inflation will keep eroding wage value. Economic volatility will keep creating chaos for people dependent on single income sources. These trends are irreversible, but here's what gives me hope. The same forces destroying the old middle class are creating unprecedented opportunities for people who adapt. The internet has democratized access to customers, knowledge, and tools. You can build a global business from your laptop. You can learn advanced skills for free online. You can invest in world-class assets with a few clicks. The barrier to ownership has never been lower. What's required isn't capital or connections or credentials. What's required is mindset. You must see yourself as a builder and an owner, not as an employee. You must think long-term when everyone around you is thinking short-term. You must invest in assets when everyone else is spending on consumption. This is day one thinking. At Amazon, day one means approaching every day like it's your first day, when you're hungry and focused and willing to do whatever it takes to build something valuable. The opposite is day two, when you become comfortable and complacent and start defending what you have instead of building what comes next. Day two is stagnation, day two is decline, day two is death. For the middle class, this is day one. The old model is dead. What comes next depends entirely on how you respond. You can resist and complain and hope things go back to the way they were, or you can adapt and build and position yourself for the economy that actually exists. The choice is yours. But understand the stakes. This isn't about getting rich. This is about basic financial security, about being able to weather job losses and industry disruptions, about protecting your family from economic chaos, about having options when the world changes. The middle class is being wiped out. But you don't have to be part of that statistic. You can choose ownership over employment, long-term building over short-term optimization, asset accumulation over lifestyle inflation. These choices will determine whether you thrive or struggle in the decades ahead. If this resonates with you, subscribe to this channel. We're going to keep exploring how to build real security in an economy that rewards owners and punishes workers. Share your thoughts in the comments. Are you seeing this shift in your industry? What are you doing to protect yourself? Let's learn from each other. The future belongs to owners. Make sure you're one of them.